high in the shadow of the Rocky Mountains, on a river whose clear, cold water trickles from the peaks. A quiet revolution in beer was brewing. Fort Collins, once under the longest-standing citywide dry law in the country, not lifting prohibition until 1969, would become something very different. As home brewers tinkered in basements and the public's thirst for something new grew, Fort Collins found its moment. By November 1989, Cooper Smith's Pub opened as the city's first local brew pub, followed just weeks later by Odell Brewing, the first to package and distribute beers beyond the taproom. 2 years later, New Belgium Brewing arrived, destined to become one of the nation's most influential craft breweries. These pioneers, alongside the community and a pristine water source from the Cache La Poudre River, set the stage for Fort Collins' transformation into the Mecca of breweries. Today, when you walk the streets of northern Colorado, the hiss of taps and the clink of glasses echo generations of innovation, environment, and community. This is where the wild frontier of beer became a craft destination. Welcome to the story of beer in northern Colorado.
I think, if you're talking about Fort Collins and you're introducing it to someone else, you're probably mentioning beer. I mean, we're a big beer town. If you look at the number of barrels produced in Fort Collins, it's pretty staggering. When Doug and Corky Odell started the brewery in '89, the story is Corky was living here in Fort Collins and Doug and Wynn were in Washington State trying to figure out where they should open a brewery, and the Pacific Northwest in their minds at that time was saturated with breweries. So they decided to come to Fort Collins and opened just down the block in 1989, all draft, little 15-barrel system. And Doug was delivering kegs out of his pickup truck. All the beer at that time, all the major producers were basically making the same light beer for as cheap as they could and leaning into marketing, right? The idea of Doug at the time was to introduce more flavor into the beer scene. So that's really where it started, and a local producer producing flavorful, balanced, delicious beer like people hadn't really had before.
Started out as this cool thing. I remember, me and my buddies riding our bikes in Fort Collins to all the breweries. We'd ride our bikes to Odell and then New Belgium, and then there was another one, HC Burger, that then turned into Fort Collins Brewery. So it kind of was just like this cool niche thing. Like it felt like it was just Colorado doing it, but you kind of heard about these other breweries, starting to do it. There were some other breweries, obviously, Oregon, California. And then it just got real kind of, excitement just kept building in northern Colorado and building. And so when we, like I said, about 2010, it was just very exciting. And so when we opened in 2013, it was, kind of the height of what you would call the nano brewery movement. So super small breweries. We opened with a 3-barrel system, and that was kind of a very new concept, meaning that we weren't going to be tied to any kind of style. We're just going to roll through a bunch of stuff and see what people liked. And, New Belgium Odell had paved the way for us to do something weird.
A lot of people didn't really realize that beer could taste this way, or that we had this many flavor options, or we could do particular things during the process to make beer taste this way. And it's very unique, right? Every craft brewery is a little bit different. My recipes are my recipes, but I could give them to any brewery around town and they would brew a little bit different beer. It wouldn't taste the way that I brew it. And that's a really unique part of brewing.
But I think the ethos of beer, craft beer, is that it's an approachable product that's meant to be shared in community. Like I don't think there's anything more communal than beer, and all my favorite experiences are all tied to times with friends and family. So all the brands that I remember as like, this is my favorite beer, I always think back and it's a great beer, but it's also about that experience. It's about that shared kind of community. And I think what I keep coming back to, why craft beer in particular is so distinct, is that it can kind of appeal to almost anyone. I think people that just say I don't like beer, you probably just haven't found the right one.
As a Fort Collins local, it's been really cool to see how the industry has grown up here in town, how it's changed over time. And it's given me perspective on what the community needs, what we can do in the community. We're not just a bar at all, really. We're a community gathering place, and beer really brings people together.
Brewing in northern Colorado has always been fueled by passion, the kind that starts small but grows into something the whole community can feel. And that spirit doesn't stay hidden in the brew house. It lives in the tap rooms, where neighbors meet, stories flow, and every detail reflects the people behind the beer. A tap room isn't just a place to drink, it's the brewer's own personality poured into a space.
Spirit of craft beer is the spirit of innovation and passion and love for our industry and the love for the product, and it's still a lot of enjoyment to share it with our customers as well, and see our customers enjoy it, and see the friendships that have been created in our tap rooms by people that met in our brewery, they met the week we opened and are still friends and come in together and meet up.
The primary reason behind having this space is not to sell beer. People end up coming back to a craft brewery, and this was a Brewers Association survey they did a couple of years ago. What's the main reason you come back to any one craft brewery? And the first reason was the atmosphere, the second reason was the service, and the third reason was the beer. So beer is a necessary condition. I have to have good beer. But before that, I have to have amazing service, and I have to have an inviting and inclusive and welcoming space.
What's funny is it's hiding underneath another sticker on my phone, but during our 3rd year anniversary, had some customer come in and sticker says I met all my friends at Hello Brewco. And it's a thing that I think we take for granted sometimes. I don't know why. It's like one of those, to me, it's magical. It's hard to say why a space, not just ours, anyone's tap room, something about the intersection of beer and that is different. And I think Colorado is definitely bigger on that. I call Colorado a tap room culture. We all want to help people in our community, and we have this unique gathering space that people will show up.
That need that a lot of people have to be in some sort of a community is very unique in a tap room. I don't think you get that kind of community nature in too many other places like you do in a tap room.
That space that people are trying to find again is your local craft brewery. We end up having a megaphone to the community, right? This is an inclusive space that anybody can come into. Beer brings people together.
I think it's the best way for people to understand who we are, not just the beers we make, but also understand our culture, why our approach is different, and why the experience is so important. So we do a lot of things that focus on the customer experience that don't necessarily just mean the beers we make or the way we serve them. It's everything from the atmosphere, from the way that we, can engage customers, the events we host and organize, the experiences, the other parts of that for us are just as exciting as what 25 to 30 beers we have on tap and what beers we have available to go. So it's trying to round those two out and making it a true third kind of space.
We are that place in the community that people can come in and feel like themselves and feel like they can connect with their neighbors.
In our tap rooms, everything feels easy, familiar faces, good beer, and that NOCO sense of community. But behind those warm spaces, our breweries carry real challenges. From rising costs to shifting habits, from supply chain storms to the lingering shadows of a pandemic, the challenges have been real and deeply felt. Yet northern Colorado brewers are built with grit and generosity. Their resilience is part of the story, too.
More than 400 breweries in Colorado, but that number's decreasing due to financial struggles many owners are now facing.
The Brewers Guild telling us several closures are expected this year. Let's go live now.
You know, it all breaks our heart when we see a brewery close. I mean, we don't want that. We don't want to see a brewery close, you know. Hard times now where in Colorado last year, more breweries had closed than opened, and that was the first year in a long time that had happened, since I think the 90s, kind of the last crash in beer. And so it's a little bit more of a grind, a little bit, you know, you have to still be innovative, but you have to be smart.
The question that's been asked every year since COVID, you know, what was the impact of COVID? And you know, it was obviously substantial, especially in the service industry, for service employees, for people running small breweries, small restaurants, bars, right? It was drastic and substantial.
When COVID hit, we were pretty close to, 60% package, 40% draft. So we were doing, 50,000 barrels in draft or something like that. Well, then one day it all went away. So we lost 25 years of work was erased in one fell swoop.
It was pretty, I think, foundational change to craft beer, both at the time and still kind of lingering. For us, because of, it's just another right timing and right circumstances. We had just purchased our own canning line just less than a year before COVID. So we were able to pivot very quickly from kegs and draft, which basically evaporated overnight, moved planned volume and even package volume, as long as it wasn't in cans, if it was slated to go into kegs. So that gave us all the opportunities to adapt and just move, several hundred to 1,000 barrels of beer from planned going into draft into cans. And even some that was already packaged, it was, a couple days prior to kind of shutting things down, we were able to reclaim that beer, put it back into our bright tanks and get it into cans successfully without losing quality or any shelf life or anything like that. Not every brewery had that opportunity. It was just dumb luck on our part, really.
The thing that got us through COVID was our mug club. We have this membership here of mug club members. They have a personalized mug on the shelf downstairs. Started as customers and they became friends for all of us. And that's a really cool feature. And it's that kind of personal relationship with our customers that got us through that. So all of our mug club members, they'd call ahead and they'd order cans, and we were sitting here filling as many cans as we possibly could every single day for all the stream of cars that would pull up, pop their trunk, and we'd fill their trunk full of beer. So we were fortunate to have that kind of community and that kind of support that we had created with that mug club, and that's what got us through that environment for sure. It was super challenging in 100 ways that everybody knows, right? But we had focused so much on that community and that connection with us as a family and as a business, as opposed to it just being a beer in a can.
I hope it stays healthy and that people can still operate independent, small craft breweries within the state of Colorado. And that's happening now, but you're also seeing some other indicators in the market that make it seem much more challenging than it used to be. So I'm hopeful that the independent craft brewer can still be a really viable long-term business in the state of Colorado.
For small businesses, there's like that 3 to 5 year mark where you have to kind of get past that 5 years and then you're pretty well established. But in customer service, in craft beer brewing, it's different. There's no guarantee of success even after 5 years. There's never a guarantee of success. So we still have to innovate our products all the time. We still have to have this atmosphere that we're intentional about creating to get people to come back.
So we just have to keep that passion and love going for the industry, and it has to start with us as owners. It has to start with my wife and I to be excited about it still. Because it is hard, things are more expensive and there's only so much you can charge for a beer until it's too expensive, I tell other brewery owners all the time now, craft beer is still fun. Beer is a passion project for us.
Every challenge brings change. And in northern Colorado, brewers adapt quickly. Tastes shift, trends come and go, but the love for craft and community stays strong. From experimenting with new flavors to keeping up with what drinkers want, our breweries show how beer can evolve without losing its heart, because innovation is the backbone of every brewer.
In the last couple of years, and I know that my other brewer compatriots can sympathize with this, but people are drinking less, they're spending less. It behooves a business, any small business, to adapt to the times, right? So there's no way that I'm able to sit back in my bar chair and just say, I'm still making the same things, come back to me when you're ready. It just doesn't work that way.
It's been fun to see it change now for a decade or more, not just in northern Colorado, but across the country. I think even though craft beer is kind of slowing down a little bit, I think 2 years ago we were down about 1% by volume for craft beer. Last year was down about 4%. This year it's probably around that same amount, 4 to 5%. We've continued to grow between 7 and 10% for the last 3 years, and on pace for that again this year. And a lot of that, kind of stemming the tide, or even kind of finding growth in a contracting market or a maturing market, I think is based on just continuing to evolve and adapt without abandoning your core values. You can't say we're going to just be a totally different brewery, we're going to make different products, we're going to change our culture and who we are. I think people resonate with that in some regards. We can't abandon that, but I think we can continue to say, is there a way we can bring in more people and find a new audience?
I think an interesting thing for us as a legacy brewery is, we have a brand like 90 Shilling that's still a very strong brand for us. It's probably number 2 in our portfolio, and we have a wide portfolio. And that's been around since the beginning. So we have this obligation, duty to be consistent with 90 Shilling and make sure it doesn't swerve off its trajectory, while maintaining its quality as raw materials adjust and hops come out of the ground and new varieties of barley come into play and different crop years present different challenges and opportunities. So we're constantly kind of tweaking 90 Shilling to make sure 90 Shilling remains 90 Shilling. But on the flip side, we have to push the envelope and innovate and play around with corn and these new hop varieties and other processes and products that are out there. As a brewery that's been around for a while, people are asking for old brands to come back, and we'll re-release things. I'll use 5-barrel pale ale as an example. Again, we had our hop back process, so we're using whole flower hops in this 5-barrel English style pale ale that was like cutting edge at the time. It's over 20 years, probably 25 years ago now. It was really hoppy for the market back then, right? Everything was really malt forward or light, and that was just, blew you away with hops. Well, turns out they're pretty mild hops in pretty low quantities compared to what you see today, even in a pale ale. So when we re-release 5-barrel today, it doesn't come across to anyone as hoppy because the tastes have changed so much onto the kind of hop forward side of things with a pale ale or IPA. So the consumers changed a lot, but they're still looking for flavor. That's something that hasn't changed with the craft brew consumer, is everyone's looking for flavors.
I think that's a challenge everyone has to answer differently. For us, it's about trying new things and finding out if a new product, a new style resonates more with a different customer base, then that's what we'll lean into. For other breweries, it's non-alcoholic is on the rise, and I think it's amazing to see how much quality and improvement and innovation is happening in that space. And I think anyone that, immediately dismisses that as a part of craft beer doesn't understand how difficult it is to make a good one.
That's a significant challenge for a lot of small breweries. It's a difficult product to make, and it's a difficult product to make safely, which through my work at CSU, we're trying to help other small breweries do that in a safe way. That's a very unique scientific challenge.
I mean, there's only so many more things it feels like we can do with beer, but really there isn't. Like, there's so many things. There's somebody's gonna think of something we haven't even thought of yet. Whether it's a new IPA style or something unique. There's always new hops coming out. There's always new yeast strains, malt, and all these new ingredients that we can play with and things you haven't thought about.
Beer's been around for 8 to 10,000 years. Beer's not going anywhere. Fermentation as a beer production or food preservation method has been around for millennia, right? So the idea of beer or fermented beverages is not going anywhere. The way that we present them to the customer, the types of flavors that we have, the amount of alcohol that we have, there's so much that we can do. Whether or not we should is a separate question. but it's opened people's eyes to what things could taste like or combinations that they didn't expect. So we're making non-alcoholic beers, we're making lower alcohol beers, we're reducing the bitterness in some of our beers to make them more approachable to a wider audience. We're having events in the brewery that are less focused on consumption and less focused on beer. So that kind of aspect of it, I think, has been the adaptation that we're trying to do. The industry is changing all the time, and I don't really necessarily like the chasing of trends, but making sure that my customer always has a reason to come in is what I'm after.
Through every shift in style and every change in the market, one thing has remained true. Northern Colorado shows up for beer, and beer shows up for Northern Colorado. Here, breweries don't just compete. They collaborate, sharing knowledge, resources, and a spirit of generosity that lifts the whole community. This is a community built on connection and carried forward by its people.
I know that there are plenty of places around the country that have lots of craft breweries per capita that they're not so friendly with their competition, but we all do things together. We have bottle shares, we have industry socials. They come over to my house on the weekends to just sit around and drink Coors Light and talk about what we do and why we love it, why it's a challenge. We just have that kind of camaraderie because we know that we're all going through the same thing. And if we keep the expectation high, if we keep the bar high, then the area is known for high quality beer, and we get tourist traffic and we get people coming back for more of that beer, and it helps all of us, right? So if we kind of have that level of rapport with each other, that expectation of if somebody tastes an off flavor in my beer, they know that I'm open to receive that feedback. I want to hear from the other experts around town that I trust that they tasted something odd in my beer. And I would do the same thing to them. So we just have that kind of level of operation that we're all trying to do the best that we can to keep the level high for all of us.
It's a special industry. I'm not exaggerating when I say I love my job and I love this industry. There's a lot of cooperation between craft breweries in particular. And even back in the day, you know, when Anheuser-Busch was independent before InBev scooped them up, they would come over and share ideas and share tech. But craft breweries, especially in Colorado, have always been open books with one another and very helpful. We have good friends from New Belgium all the way up and down the Front Range in the brewing industry, and we compare notes and share ingredients, and it's a pretty special industry, and we're proud to be part of it.
We're a very collaborative industry. I think that has fueled a lot of our growth. It's always tougher when, as an industry is continuing to grow, that's always, those values I think stay true. As competition becomes, different, and as breweries close, we've kind of seen some of that shift. But I think at the heart of why craft beer is exciting is it's truly still collaborative. I think we all want to see everyone that's willing to put the time and effort and do it, the way that we all believe is valuable, with, intent on ingredients and quality and culture and caring for people in our communities. If that's kind of your ethos, I think we all want to see more people enter this profession, enter this industry, and be successful.
In Northern Colorado, still very collaborative. We still work together, we still talk, we still share ingredients, we help each other out when somebody needs something in a pinch. And in Fort Collins specifically, we revived Fort Collins Beer Week and trying to revive things before COVID. And that's a little bit of the story of beer was the effect that COVID had, and everybody kind of got in their little bubble, and a lot of festivals ended and a lot of events ended, and Fort Collins Beer Week was one of those things that kind of fell off the map a little bit. So we actually revived it. I'm actually on a member on the committee for Fort Collins Beer Week, and so we restarted it back in this year, was that June? And then we're already planning for next year. We're trying to bring a festival back to it. So we're just trying to recreate that engagement with the customers again, and engagement with each other just a little bit more. We're just trying to recapture that again and keep the excitement and positivity going.
The whole point of it is to have this central group of us to elevate craft beer within the Fort Collins community and to build the community amongst the breweries within our town. One thread that we all are aware of is like the importance of having beer in important experiences and spaces. And so if we can work together to create these opportunities to have this time and space with great beer that we're already making, we have that opportunity to like make something special.
There's a lot of areas of the country that have big craft beer scenes. This area is unique because there's a lot of competition here, but we're all friends, and that's the coolest part about it. I've never been in an industry like this, that we share tips and tricks and ingredients. When somebody needs help, the other brewers jump in. If they're out of a bag of grain, the other brewers jump in. And it's ironic because we're all fighting for the same customer, right? There's very little brand loyalty anymore. People go to a beer that they like, or they want to go try something new, right? So they're bouncing around all the time. And so we're all fighting for the same customer. Every time a new brewery opens up, there isn't suddenly a new population of people over 21 that are going to fill that space, right? They're taking from other spots. The thing about that makes Fort Collins unique is that it's the cliche of the rising tide lifts all boats, right? We all want each other to do really well. We want each other to make really good beer, and we help each other do that. So if we're all operating at a similar level and we're all making really world-class, high-quality beer, then our customers can bounce around and feel comfortable doing that because they know that this is the place for craft beer.